Hey everybody, welcome to this Druber Plays discussion live stream. It is so good to have everybody here. This is the first ever Druber Plays discussion. And, I'm, as many people know, I am a streamer. It's not a new thing, but it is just the first time I've ever really done a live stream this way. So it is so good to see you guys right now. But before we begin, I want to welcome my special guest who's going to be, tackling this whole thing with me. I am here with none other than Nintendo Hero.
Hey
Nintendo
everyone.
Hero, what's up?
Not much.
Hey.
I'm excited to talk about the sequel to Breath of the Wild.
This is awesome. Let's address our folks here. We got Ivan Mendez. What is up? We got Mindy Guy. Casey, howdy ho to you too. Super Sparks, first Druber Plays live stream. That's actually technically true. I didn't really put that together till now, but I love that. Yes, this is sick. I'm looking forward to it. So Nintendo Hero, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm all right. Now you and I have pretty much already had some discussions about this because that's kind of what led to this becoming a real thing. I remember after E3, the Nintendo conference, you and I just kind of chatted for a while on Discord. So it was kind of like one of those things where it's like, you know what, we should share our thoughts. And we haven't discussed everything, everybody. So there will be some stuff that's really fresh. But we just wanted the two of us to kind of take you guys through our thoughts, our ideas, and our theories, because man, if nothing else, we got a ton of stuff to talk about from this teaser. But
I've pretty much been thinking about this teaser trailer nonstop ever since it happened.
Yes, but yes, officially, Nintendo Hero, this might be the first time you've actually had a presence in a video or stream.
I think so.
I just wanted to welcome you. You've been a longtime viewer, and Nintendo Hero is also an amazing YouTuber. His info should be in the description, so you can click on his channel and check it out there. This is really not. I feel like I'm kind of in new territory because you're used to breaking down things in your videos and your content, but
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
not as much as Game Explain or something though.
Right. So without further ado, we have a lot to talk about, so we should probably just get into it. But so the first thing we're gonna do, guys, is we want to keep ourselves on task. So we're here to kind of first of all just break down our first impressions that we had when we saw the E3 2021 teaser. So that's what we're gonna do first. And so I thought what we'd do is Nintendo Hero, you and I would just watch it again. And then I'd like to hear from you first. When you first saw it, what was going through your mind? What were your first impressions? Because people who are following the channel already know my first impressions. That video is also in the description, guys. Let's start with that, and we'll go from there. So if I can find it. All right, here we go.
This will probably be my 150th time watching it.
Fair. All right, here we go.
It's so cinematic. I love it.
Yeah, it's so good.
That is going to be so iconic in a couple of years. Crazy.
It really, yeah. When you're doing it for the first time in the game.
Yeah. And the music, holy cow.
The music is so good. I got goosebumps already.
Yeah.
There it is.
And Zelda's Lullaby.
Just those 3 notes.
Yep.
All right. So I'm gonna kind of turn down the volume there. I might kind of just scrub through a little bit as we talk about it, but I'd like to get your first impressions. So when you saw that, whenever you were watching E3, what was your first impressions of that? What were you thinking about?
Well, the very first thing was probably, we don't have a name yet. that's like the only thing I wanted was a name.
Yeah.
But just like mind blowing, probably, because I had this idea of the game in my head that it was underground and in caverns and really spooky, and like maybe you don't even go to the surface again. And then that first shot just like right there just opens up, and it's like, whoa, everything I thought about the game is just blown out the window. Blew
that out of the water. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm with you. Like, my first thing was like, why didn't we get a title? I got kind of hung up on that. And people who know my first reactions from E3 and the Nintendo conference, I was kind of bitter. I mean, like, I was happy with this, that we got, at least something else to kind of chew on. But man, it is, and I don't even know, like, I think, of course, I have to keep reminding myself it's a teaser, not a trailer, and it did its job as a teaser, because it's not if you consider it a trailer, it's not the best trailer.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's disjointed and all over the place. But as a teaser, it's fascinating, and it's obviously keeping us very busy. But
I think it's cool because it's like almost every single shot has something new and groundbreaking and something to think about, which I really appreciate.
Right. So, so I'm going to remove that for a second. Bring up I saw a comment that I wanted to highlight from Mind Guy. Have you seen the reversed version yet as well? And yes, I think we'll talk about that too, because I've seen that. So there'll be some things to discuss there. But yeah, so, and we'll talk about that one too.
Lots to talk about. Yeah.
So much. So, this is not going to be, everybody, is us breaking down every shot from the trailer. I might pull that up again as reference if we need to talk about something specific. But we have a list of topics we're going to go through. So let's get into it. First of all, what does Breath of the Wild do in terms of hinting at what would be included in the sequel? In other words, like, what clues are embedded in the first game for the sequel? And like, Nintendo here, you and I talked about this a little bit. I recently played through Breath of the Wild again, and with the lens of like, okay, I'm ready for the sequel. I'm playing this first game. What am I going to find? And as you're playing it, I like, obviously, some things come to mind that I think will definitely be included. The champion descendants, in some way, shape, or form, I feel like will have to be some part of the game.
Yeah.
It can't just be, you got to have a cast of supporting characters, and probably new characters, I'm assuming. The fact that everything in Hyrule is in ruins and shambles, I don't think we're going to see much of that this time. I think that we're going to see, especially if you take clues from the end of the game, what Zelda and Link are setting out to do is, in a way, kind of rebuild. And actually, I can pull this up. I have a clip here. I'm just going to go try to find it here.
Yeah, the one thing we know about the Zelda team is that they almost never do the same thing twice. Like they're constantly innovating with new mechanics, new styles,
Right.
new everything. So this sequel, I seriously doubt it'll have the same atmosphere as Breath of the Wild, like the decayed world and all that stuff. I'm guessing it'll be something completely new, completely fresh.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And because that would be boring if it was the same, right? So
Yeah.
we're almost there. There's this scene, and I might as well just kind of want to watch it. Here we go. So this is the very ending scene at the end of the game, the bonus clip.
And this is the one that's only unlocked if you get all the memories, right?
I believe so.
We'll make our way to Zora's domain. Divine Beast Varuta. Looks like it's stopped working.
I feel like everything she says is important right here.
Yeah, because like, why did it stop working?
Eva's father.
And you have to note right now, in this scene, you specifically can spot all 4 divine beasts in the background.
They're still in the usual position, yeah.
Yeah, they're all there.
I believe he would like to hear more about her. The least we can do is visit him and offer him some closure. Although Ganon is gone for now, there is still so much more for us to do, and so many painful memories that we must bear. I believe in my heart that if all of us work together, we can restore Hyrule to its former glory. Perhaps even beyond, but it all must start with us. Let's be off.
I'm moving my logo so you can see the 4th divine beast.
Yeah.
There it is.
I can no longer hear the voice inside the sword. I suppose it would make sense if my power had dwindled over the past 100 years.
Okay, and so anyway, basically, so my point was that at the end of the game, as a bonus scene that you work hard to get, right? Like they kind of tee up that like Link and Zelda are off to kind of rebuild in a way, Hyrule. We've seen that before. We've seen that kind of at the end of Wind Waker, at the end of Skyward Sword. We've kind of gotten the notion that those 2 characters are going to kind of help rebuild things.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, it's interesting that Varuta has stopped missing. I'm assuming that the rest of the Divine Beast have stopped working stopped working. I'm assuming the rest of them have stopped working as well. So yeah, I think that's a good thing. The other thing that I think is important is Zelda's comment right before you face off with the Dark Beast Ganon, right? She kind of talks about
that he's given up on reincarnation, right?
Yes, thank you. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So it's kind of like
scrubbing
before the final battle, because you beat Calamity Ganon in the first fight. You're like, you beat him, it's over. But then you go out to the field and Zelda's like, he's given up on reincarnation. He's now just become a pure like hate and malice incarnate. And so she thinks that Ganon has just given up. So yeah, we'll see it here.
Ganon was born out of a dark past. He is a pure embodiment of the ancient evil that is reborn time and time again. He has given up on reincarnation and assumed his pure, enraged form. If set free upon our world, the destruction will be unlike anything ever seen before.
So that's pretty much there's Dark Beast Ganon. So that's pretty much the comment she makes. And I kind of think, and we'll get to it later about the corpse and everything, but like, is that true? Did he really give up, or is that just what we assume?
I don't think he did. No.
Yeah.
That's
kind of what I'm leaning toward.
I think Ganon's reincarnation process takes so long and is so like it spans over so many years that Zelda's kind of working with limited information. So she thinks that, oh, this is it. But she doesn't know about the source of everything down below Hyrule Castle. So she assumes that this is the source of everything when really it might not be.
And that goes to a larger point that I feel that Zelda and basically the inhabitants of Hyrule are misinformed about Hyrule's history, and and especially within the point of that they don't name drop the Triforce at all. It's sealing power.
Yeah.
And of course, with the tapestry of 10,000 years ago, how accurate is that? Mm-hmm. What all do we remember from 10,000 years ago? What details have changed, of course. So anyway, anything else that you want to talk about from the first game?
Not a whole bunch. This is skipping ahead a little bit, but I just think it would be interesting if the history of Hyrule that we were taught in Breath of the Wild isn't completely accurate, because like the Sheikah or Hyrule, the history teachers of Hyrule, I don't know, they just have kind of left out important details to kind of shape the narrative the way they want it to be. And then in this next sequel, we'll see what actually happened, what's actually going on.
Yeah. There's a comment here from Mind Guy. They also said that it would be the darkest game of the entire franchise. Did they say the entire franchise or darker than?
Yeah.
Okay, the entire franchise.
Which is pretty crazy, because
Majora's bold Mask claim.
Yeah, Majora's Mask can get pretty dark at times, so that's crazy.
And then Super Spark says Majora's Mask, but open world. Yeah, basically. That's what I think we should all expect. Well, let's move on to the next topic. And that is basically, is that really Ganondorf? I think it is. I think it is.
I think it's some form of Ganondorf for sure.
It's interesting that Nintendo just threw that out there and they just haven't confirmed it whatsoever. It's just like they haven't even said anything about it, and like we just all jump to assume that it is because, and I think it is. But some people have brought up the point that it could be Demise, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah,
and there are definite ties, I think, to Skyward Sword from this upcoming game. So if it's really, obviously the end of the timeline, if it really is breaking the cycle that Zelda talked about, this could be Demise. We don't really know, but I think all signs really do point to it being Ganondorf.
I think it would be cool if it was Demise, because at the end of Skyward Sword, Demise lays that curse on Link and Zelda. He's like, I will keep reincarnating and chasing you down, but we never really got any details of how that happened. So if we actually got to see, like, this is Demise's body, this is how he continues to reincarnate, and like the goal of Breath of the Wild is to permanently end the cycle of Ganondorf's reincarnation, like that would be some really epic final type stuff.
Yeah. And like, I feel like, I mean, and I'm showing the trailer now just as we talk about it, but like I think my favorite moments of the whole Zelda series have to do with the scenes where we have this trio in the same room, and whether it's whether it's Demise or Ganondorf, I'm just talking about the trio of, basically the Triforce, the wielders, right? Mm-hmm. Whenever they're in the same room, things get really interesting. And this might be the most iconic scene of the series, honestly, because of how dark it is and how real things are going to get. And you and I kind of talked about it a little bit, and we will in this stream, but like how we think things are going to go very badly for our heroes.
Obviously, something goes wrong underneath Hyrule Castle.
Yeah. And we're pretty sure that this is under Hyrule Castle. I don't think that, like, because I remember after this first teaser, some people thought like, oh, that's just we don't really know that, like it's just the way they edited it. But I kind of think it is still under.
Especially with, now that we know, because we have that shot in the second teaser of all the malice coming out of Hyrule Castle. So that kind of helps confirm that we're under Hyrule Castle.
That might be the one thing that got confirmed, or one question that got answered from this.
About 30 more questions.
Yeah, and added a lot more questions. I'm trying to find, there it is. This shot. Not that one. This one. What is this?
No idea. It kind of looks like Zonai ruins. You can't really make it out though.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you see basically like what look like hands or paws or something on the sides. Do you see that next to the stairs?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't recall this location in Breath of the Wild. And it's possible that this is what leads to the corpse, where
That's
it's
probably
being
like the
stored.
entrance. Yeah.
The entrance to it, yeah. So I just thought that was interesting. A lot of people also got excited about this and talking about the fact that dungeons could be returning. And I really, really hope so, man.
If we could get Breath of the Wild's open world with more traditional dungeons and puzzle solving and like some bosses and stuff, it would literally be like one of the greatest Zelda games just by default.
I wholeheartedly agree. Mind Guy says it's demise. Look, when you see the shadow on the wall, yeah, I had that kind of pulled up for a moment here. And I think that, oh, I went too far. It goes by so quick.
Yeah.
I went too far again.
It's interesting because I've seen the shadow on the wall, and you can tell that Ganondorf in the shadow isn't his corpse body. He's like a normal person, which we've known that for a while. But I saw an interesting thing online the other day that maybe the green hand is a person too, and we just can't see the rest of his body because, like, you can tell like there's more of the actual body.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can definitely tell. It's like it kind of evokes that this was the moment of the sealing, if that's what's happening here, if that's what happens to him as he's being sealed.
Yeah.
So anyways, the reason I think that it is Ganondorf is just because, well, a few reasons. One is that the Gerudo markings that he appears to be having, the jewel on his head, the red hair, but I also know that that's a point for demise. Just I get also the neck crack for me as a big Twilight person fan, Twilight Princess fan. I said Twilight person, Twilight Princess fan. Just how the neck crack was involved with his death, kind of. Yeah, so I think it's Ganondorf, but I also think it'd be totally amazing if it was a demise, just because his physique does remind you of that.
Yeah, I'm good either way. And I said this the other day, with that head crack, the way he snaps and looks at the camera. Yeah. It's kind of similar to Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time when Zelda's looking through the window and Ganondorf like snaps his head and looks at Zelda. So I think that's another point for it being Ganondorf, and maybe even the Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time.
Yes, because I believe that if it is truly Ganondorf, that it is the same Ganondorf we've always known all along.
Yeah.
Remember back when the first trailer hit and everyone was like Ganondorf but hot, and they made all that fan art. There was a popular theory about Ganondorf being good. Yeah. I don't know how you get that from the satanic looking eyes, but whatever. I think that neck crack, that moment where he looks at the camera, I think he could be looking right at Zelda, you know? I think that'd be kind of interesting moment to tie it to your thought about Ocarina.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anything else on this character? We only get one shot of this character in the latest teaser, free of the bond of that hand and what we assume is controlling more malice and possibly lifting the castle is kind of what I thought from that, of him raising his arms.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Who knows? That's the conclusion of most of the speculation.
Every topic we're gonna say, who knows? Yeah. Okay. A big topic of discussion, probably the most talked about thing, is the islands. I'll call them the Skyrule Islands, and accompanied with that, because it was just one image that I freaked out at, was Link's new look. Of course, if that is Link, but him falling in the sky in a Skyward Sword style. It's almost like the same animation, you know. When you
it looks very similar. Yeah,
it's very similar. So let's talk about it. I'll let you start this time. Thoughts on any of those shots that are in the trailer? I can pull it up again, of course.
Well, I think one of the most interesting things, as many people have pointed out, is that we don't actually see Link's face except for the very first shot of the trailer, that quick flash.
Yeah, this one here. There he is.
Yeah, that right there.
This is the only shot of Link in the whole thing. Yeah.
So maybe you're just overthinking it or something, but technically we don't actually know that it's Link further in the trailer. And like, yeah, it probably is, and maybe we're just overthinking it, but that is a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any other game really where we've played as not Link in some way. So keep going if you have more to share, because I'll go down the rabbit trail with my theory.
We haven't seen his face, so we don't specifically know that it's Breath of the Wild Link. I think it's safe to say it's a Link, but maybe a Link from a different time period.
Yeah. It's just, I really love that Nintendo decided to show us this, because it was the last thing that I think everyone was expecting to see. And, I mean, you could just look at it and be like, oh, well, it's just a random costume. Like, how many costumes or outfits do you get to wear in Breath of the Wild? But it's not really, no. This is like this. They're showing us this outfit for a reason.
Yeah, well, if you look at the original Breath of the Wild trailers, he's almost always wearing his light blue tunic with Hyrule pants. Like in official Zelda trailers, they very rarely change up Link's clothing to try and make it seem consistent. So the fact that they're actually showing him in such like wildly different clothing, I think is kind of a hint at the larger story of the game.
Yes. I want to get this out of the way, because the more I've thought about it, I don't really put a lot of stock into it, but there are direct parallels to who we assume is Link here, what he's wearing, and Ganondorf, who we assume is Ganondorf.
Yeah.
Why can't I find it? Probably because it's so quick. There he is. Like, what he's wearing is very similar because of the one I mean, now there could have been two here. It could have just been torn off, but it's it's very interesting that long hair, long sleeve on one side, bare chested, it's now what I'm going to say right off the bat is that it's direct of the time period. That
I think it's just more evidence that this version of Link that we're seeing is of the same time period of the creepy corpse.
Yeah, I agree. Now you're right. We don't see his face. Obviously, and people have said like his hair is longer. I don't know if it's longer. I know it's just not in a ponytail anymore. But his clothing changes the more we go through the shots. Like, it looks like he bundles up a little bit more. He's got pants and boots on here. He's obviously got more gear. Quick side note, I love the streamers on the paraglider.
Yeah, the streamers. I think there could even be some cool gameplay stuff with that. Because if you look at the Breath of the Wild art book, there's like they thought about having streamers to kind of help you control the direction of the wind, but they kind of like tell what direction the wind is going. But they kind of dropped that idea. Like, the direction of the wind isn't that important of a factor in Breath of the Wild. In like one or two puzzles, there's a really strong wind, so you can't use the paraglider. But maybe in this new game with the streamers, we actually like using the wind faster and everything.
Maybe it goes faster.
That's another thing. Like an upgraded version.
If you have more ground to cover and you don't want to like sink down, like if maybe that helps you like go further before you fall. I don't know. Or maybe like Wind Waker, where you have to know where the direction of the wind is going and use that. Yeah, I think that'd be really interesting.
I think the paraglider definitely has to be upgraded at least a little bit, because in Breath of the Wild, it's a pretty like downward angle. Like, you fall pretty fast. So if we're going to be going from island to island, there either has to be some updrafts to keep you up, or the paraglider just moves in a more straightforward fashion.
Yeah. So it seems like we're still talking about the character here. So, I mean, I'll just share what I think as well. I'm with you. I think that this is a different time period, and I'll go one step further, that I think that this is a link, but the link from the tapestry, the link from 10,000 years ago, as hinted at during the first calamity in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And the only reason I really have to say that is because Hyrule looks just so different. And even in like, I think it's beyond the islands and Link's look and everything, and that fact that there's floating islands. It's this guy here. We don't see anything that looks remotely like this guy in Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives me vibes of, not that I'm saying that this is around the time of Skyward Sword, but like the guys who help you manipulate time travel, those machinery looking guys, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, the ones who like fly around in the air and insult you all the time.
Yeah, they're really mean.
Yeah,
it's just kind of gives me not that those guys look like him. It's just, I don't know. I get vibes of that.
It's definitely it's definitely modern technology, because in Breath of the Wild, all the technology is like 10,000 years old, and it's rusty, and it kind of is barely even working anymore. But this looks like it's fully functioning. It was just made recently, so that's even more evidence that this game is taking place 10,000 years ago, and we're actually going to see the events of the tapestry.
And I'm really hoping that like we have no idea what really happened. And I feel like that's kind of the case, because otherwise it'd be like, why are we doing this? We know how it turned out, but I feel like there's a lot more to the story if that's the case. If we're really going to, and that's the thing. But the sheer fact that there's just so many islands in the sky, and I wouldn't have thought that it was a different time period at all, actually, if it wasn't for this shot where we see the very familiar looking Link and map and all that. Now we'll talk more about the map later, but I this just made me feel like, oh, it's two different characters, it's two different lands, because in this shot you don't see the islands. You know?
It's very confusing. And I think they're because they dressed him up in his kind of usual attire with the traveler's shield, the light blue tunic, and I think they're kind of trying to throw us a little bit. I think
they are too, yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. There's so many details in this shot alone to dissect and everything.
I want to read some of your comments because I don't want to go too far, but we have a comment about the arm. I also think there are some shots of our quote unquote present day Link here. Well, there's the arm with the fingernails, as was also pointed out by people. But there's a shot of him using the arm. And I believe if you look closer, I can't really zoom in, but his right arm is extended. And even though he's got clothing on to cover it, it looks like the same arm. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think it's definitely the same arm. I think they're dressing him up to look like his previous self to make us think something else. Like, I think, in my opinion, I think this is still the 10,000 years ago hero.
Oh, really?
I think so. I think they just dressed him up to make it look like the Breath of the Wild Link.
That's interesting. Man, that would be a huge, like, I don't know. That's just bait.
We'll talk about it later in the story segments, but I have some ideas.
Because I'm of the opinion that, like, and it's what's throwing me, obviously, is like, okay, we're saying that this Link from the present day and the Link from back then are sharing this ability. And yeah, we'll get into it when we talk about the story. But I'm of the opinion that we'll be jumping back and forth between time periods, and that the present day Link will almost be like learning and gaining more abilities as you go along, the more he experiences it. And I hate to say this, but kind of like Assassin's Creed, where you would live the life of your ancestor and pick up their abilities.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing that I feel like I need to mention is just the structures of the islands, because there's this structure here that's really large and it doesn't look like the rest of the floating islands. And a lot of people are talking about this structure, and I don't really know. I don't have anything to say about it other than it could be a dungeon. And
that'd be cool, yeah.
There's a shot later where it looks like you see similar architecture in it's the shot after this here, off to the left side there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That kind of architecture is very similar.
Definitely.
I don't know. I think also in this shot, you can kind of see off. I think I went too far. I messed it already. But anyway, it looks like there's some chunks of those pillars stuck in the ground.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I don't know about these islands, man. Like, if this is truly the ancient past of Hyrule, then we had floating islands, and something happened where we don't anymore in present day. And I have a thought, and and I'm kind of jumping all over you here, but there's one more thought, and it was had to do with, actually, it's off in the distance, but that's that archway there.
Yeah.
And actually, I think you see a better shot of it at the end here. Yeah, this thing. And to me, that looks like a shrine, like where you would find a Sheikah mummy, at the end of a shrine.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm off on that, but I almost wonder, if you look in the shot, you can see other arches on these floating islands.
There's like multiple of them all over the place. Yeah.
So what if this is truly the ancient past, and you actually get to meet the members of the Sheikah, monks, and
that would be cool.
And then maybe at the end of that time period, when the islands, maybe they somehow regressed or fell down, and maybe these are the shrines that we did in Breath of the Wild. How they got so far underground, I don't know. I'm just saying, it's something to think about.
Don't ask about the details.
So yeah, the other thing before we move on, because there's just so much to talk about, unless you had a point to share. Sorry.
I just think it's important to note that all of these structures on the floating islands are brand new and we've never seen them before. Because I was kind of thinking, when people would pitch the idea of floating islands in the sky, I was like, yeah, that'd be kind of boring though, because it would just be the normal Hyrule, but now it's in the sky, kind of like Hyrule Castle. So what I was thinking when I first saw this trailer was like, oh, pieces of land are floating up into the sky like Hyrule Castle did. But the fact that this is all new architecture and new everything, even new trees and new colors, like that means that it didn't just rise up from the ground, which again further supports the theory that this is taking place 10,000 years ago.
Right. Like, because how many of these trees did you spot in Breath of the Wild? Now, I mean, I guess it's possible that the seasons change, of course, but they're all gold. They're all yellow trees. And
I think you can see that below the surface, there are still green trees down there. So there's definitely a difference between the trees.
I think let me see. I'm going to pull up this comment here. The heights of where the last shot of the islands, which were paused on, are shown and I think you're correct that it looks super high up in the sky. And I remember thinking in the last shot, that when you see Hyrule Castle floating here, that it did look that high. But they're saying that the heights of these islands are actually at the top of like the same height as like the Gerudo Valley, or the top of the Gerudo Valley. Because I think someone who was trying to recreate all the shots from the teaser in Breath of the Wild somehow hacked their way up to the same height to get that same shot of the one we were just on here. Yep. Yeah. And they weren't that high up. So as opposed to like, the islands from Skyward Sword, which are so high up, these just appear to be floating above the ground and not this huge separation, which would be very good, because I really hope that you can just go from the surface to the islands and back.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
Seamlessly. But yeah. Yeah, so a lot of differences on the map, and of course we'll talk about the map in a minute, but so let's move on to the next thing. Oh yeah, I love this one. Is Zelda going to be playable in
Okay, now we're getting into the good stuff.
I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, so here's my kind of pitch for the whole game. This is kind of like big picture stuff.
Okay.
So I think Link and Zelda venture down below Hyrule Castle and discover the corpse of Ganondorf and inadvertently wake him back up, and he's alive again. So he's alive again, and the hand takes off to like either save Link or Zelda or whatever happens. Something goes down, basically. We don't know exactly what. But I think that Link and the Green Hand will be sent 10,000 years into the past, and Zelda will stay in the present. And then the whole kind of concept of the game will be you play as Link in the past and Zelda in the present. So like you switch between those two. So Zelda is in the present version of Hyrule, and then you switch to Link, who's exploring ancient Hyrule. And then this is kind of getting into story stuff, but I think Zelda will have to take down Corpse Ganondorf, and Link will have to take down normal modern Ganondorf.
Oh my gosh, that would be so cool.
So that's kind of my big picture pitch for this game.
Let's get you hired at Nintendo ASAP. No, that'd be great. I love that thought. I remember in a previous conversation, I'll just share this thought real quickly. It kind of differs from yours a little bit, but because I'm of the opinion that I think that there are still two Links that are playable, and it's between two different time periods. But if Zelda was playable, that would be my idea was like, she's fallen beneath the surface and she's like in this cavern setting, and maybe that's actually if she's playable, maybe there are some maybe that she does a lot of the dungeons while Link does a lot of the open world gameplay.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
And that she's working in the cavernous dungeons that we didn't have access to before because they were underground under these big landmarks or whatever. And that the whole not the whole game, but most of the game, it was like from a story standpoint, it would really work because you were like just rooting for these characters to find their way back to each other. And like the whole time you're switching back and forth and they're trying to reunite. And I thought that'd be like just so compelling from a storytelling standpoint. But I have to say something that while all that would be cool, I don't think Zelda's going to be playable.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like there's a big part of me that really hopes she'll be, if she's not playable, at least a huge part of the story, like a constant part of your journey. But realistically, there's a high likelihood that she'll just fall below and then you'll just play as Link for the majority of the journey.
I mean, so here's the thing. And this would be an amazing call on Nintendo's part if they did this. But can you imagine later in the year, we get a surprise teaser, maybe not a full trailer, but another surprise teaser. And yet again, they show us the scene between those three characters and she falls. But maybe when she falls this time, instead of seeing her fall, you're seeing Link and the camera's from her perspective and it falls away from him. And then the whole teaser or the rest of the teaser, you don't see Link again. You only see Zelda doing stuff.
That would be cool.
From her perspective. Wouldn't that be amazing? And that would reveal you got the sky gameplay and then underground.
Yeah, I definitely think it would be cool if they kind of get split up, and that's kind of the point of the game is Link is doing his own stuff, Zelda's doing her own stuff, but they're both working towards the same goal of either reuniting or defeating Ganondorf or something like that.
Yes. I love your idea about they have to defeat Ganon in the present and in the past, because the more I thought about it, I was like, I so badly just want Ganondorf to look like Ganondorf and not a mummy.
Me too.
I mean, he looks cool and scary, but I'm like, I want him to be Ganondorf that we know and love. I want him to talk. I want him to be intelligent. I want him to look green or tan or whatever he's going to look like, whatever the Gerudos look like. I feel like he'd be green, and then have his armor and stuff or whatever. But I don't know how that would happen unless he just somehow regenerates himself. But the past is the key.
Yeah, that's what my idea is. You kind of get the best of both worlds. So Zelda is facing the creepy kind of force of nature Ganondorf, where he doesn't really talk. He's just pure evil, pure hatred. But then Link, you get the more sophisticated Ganondorf who kind of talks to Link and explains his plan. And then I had this cool idea of the final boss fight, you switch between the two, where you're in the Zelda phase of the battle where you have to defeat the corpse, and then once you get far in that fight, you switch back to Link and he's taking on normal Ganondorf, I don't know. It's cool stuff.
Yeah. Super Spark says, no, he's going to be a mummy, which I could see that happening too. But
that could totally happen. Yeah.
So I think, I don't think she'll be playable, but I think, and this just goes back to one of our first topics about what the first game was setting up. And I feel like we should talk about it here before we get too far, is that a lot of character progression happened with Zelda in Breath of the Wild. Like this game story was practically her story. And by the end of the game, and what you experience as Link, both of those characters become so OP, right? Like they become so powerful that like they have to be taken down a notch in this game.
Yeah, I think that's what the opening will be. Yeah,
because like Zelda has her sealing power, so something's got to happen to her where like maybe she's just lost underground. And with Link, I mean, we seem to have no signs of a Sheikah Slate, no Master Sword after that one scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wonder, and we can talk about this when we get to gameplay, I guess, but I mean, you have to wonder about the champion's abilities, if those are gone or if you'll have those.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
But I guess if you're time traveling, it won't really matter because you wouldn't have them. But I always love it when direct sequels remember what you earned and achieved in the previous game and give it to you. Batman Arkham is a good example. Like you start out kind of with the gadgets that you ended with in a previous game, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So it would be cool if you got to maintain as the player what you earned in the first game, but
yeah,
I realize
doubt that will happen.
Down. Yeah,
but I think at the very least, I want them to address how Link becomes less powerful, and something with Zelda that's kind of interesting. When we rewatched that final scene of Breath of the Wild, I saw that she has that part where she's like, "I can no longer hear the voice inside the sword."
Yeah,
so maybe her sealing power, she kind of used all of it, and it's kind of gone dormant again. And it's kind of I had kind of mixed thoughts on that because that might kind of end up in the same character arc for her, which
awakening
would
it again.
Yeah, like I want to awaken my power, and that would kind of suck. But
also for Link, and I guess I just kind of had a new thought about the champion's abilities. If all the divine beasts, quote unquote, stop working, maybe that means that scene where we see the champion's ghost disappear. If they've moved on, then those divine beasts have no pilots, which also means that if they moved on, Link wouldn't have their abilities anymore, right?
Also, that's a good one. You should send that to the developers.
or I could trick him and be like, no, keep his abilities. I want to Rivali's Gale everywhere. But yeah. So cool. Okay, this is going to be a big can of worms. Breaking down the map / overworld.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
So much to talk about.
So much. But so yeah, let's get into it. I'll pull up the teaser again and I'll rewind it a little bit. For me, I'll just go to the shot because we've already talked about the sky rule here. I'm calling it sky rule, as a lot of people have been calling it.
Yeah.
Here we go. All right. So this shot, very familiar area in the world, but also a lot of differences. And I think you said before we went live that this is actually the most talked about shot.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, one of the main things, obviously, and I'll let you kind of get into a lot of the specifics, but right off the bat, and it's the easy thing to talk about, no shrines, no towers, no divine beasts.
Mm-hmm.
Let's assume that my theory is correct and that this is the present first. And then if it's the past, then that's the answer. Like they're not there, right? I guess.
Yeah.
But it's possible that at the end of Breath of the Wild, like if you did everything in the game, like if you did all 120 shrines, unlocked the map and freed the divine beast, right? Like you've essentially passed the test of the monks, like that they set out for the hero of the wild. And I would say that those locations aren't necessary or needed for the hero anymore, and that they probably just went back underground. So that's my thought of why they're not there. The divine
that's totally a possibility because most of the shrines and towers rose from the ground, so you assume that they can just sink back.
Go back in, yeah. The divine beasts, two possibilities. One, they just moved. They're mobile in the game. Maybe
Sidon hopped in and went to go give Vah Ruta a bath.
Can you imagine if you're just running in the map and like, Vah Ruta is just, it's like, oh, I gotta watch out, don't get stepped on. Like if it's moving, like that'd be kind of cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Second possibility is that when Ganon did his thing, he woke up and he lifted Hyrule Castle in the sky. He was able to just at a whim possess the divine beast, and that's while he was being held down by this hand, right?
So he's pretty powerful. He
could just destroy them if he wanted to.
Probably.
So maybe they're gone for good. But that's my theory about if it's in the present.
So now I'll talk about why I think it's in the past.
Good job. Good job.
There's lots of details here. The biggest ones is Death Mountain. There's no lava yet, so it's an inactive volcano. It hasn't exploded yet, which is a pretty big detail that is different from the first game. Like lava doesn't retract back into a volcano. So that's a big hint of, oh, this is in the past. Death Mountain isn't active yet. And then there's lots of other details. One of the biggest ones that I learned just today was where the Deku tree isn't there. It's just a normal forest. Which
Deku
is like
tree.
Maybe the Deku tree is just a baby tree and hasn't grown up yet.
And in fact, I mean, for those who, if you're not visualizing that, there's a ton of like pink leaves, and it covers a huge area.
And it's huge, yeah.
It's huge, and it might even be more than just the Deku tree. It's mainly the Deku tree, but all the trees surrounding him are also of that same shade, and it's gone.
Totally gone.
It's to the left of where he's talking about, of the mountains there. Yeah.
And then I think one of the biggest things of why I think this is in the past is because it's kind of hard to make out, but in the top left corner of the screen right now,
I'm trying to actually pause there. Yeah.
Yeah. You can actually see Hyrule Castle is still in the ground and not risen up above the landscape, which to me is a huge indicator that we are no longer in the present. We're in a different time, because in the present day, Hyrule Castle lifts up from the ground and moves out of the ground, and that's where all the malice is. So the fact that it's still in the ground and still like at normal level, to me, is a huge evidence of we're in the past.
I have a counterpoint to that, actually.
Yeah, sounds good.
When we go to, and I'll come back to this shot. When we go here, went too far. That shot lasts forever. You see parts when it's rising. It looks like there's still parts of Castletown left.
That's true. Yeah.
And maybe in that shot we're just seeing Castletown, but I don't know. It's possible.
It's hard to tell for sure.
It's hard to tell. Yep. But anyway, there's a lot more in this this shot here. The oops. Okay. Obviously beyond the it's funny because like Nintendo was trying to wow us with moblins on top of a stone talus, but everyone's looking behind it.
Yeah.
There's the dueling peaks. Okay. Someone pointed this out, and I saw this today. And this is getting really, I would have never uncovered this ever, but it kind of supports your theory. The shadows of the trees.
Oh yeah.
It's indicating, and I'm not really good on my directions of the Hyrule map, but it looks like, basically, I'll just sum it up like this. You go in Breath of the Wild to this location and you stand there for a whole day cycle. The shadows never reach that side of the tree. Exactly, they start out on the other side and they loop around, and then the sun sets, and it never quite reaches that point, which is interesting. And their wild theory was that that all time is moving in reverse. In fact, the Earth's rotation is rotating the other way.
Yeah,
meaning that the sun is rising, in the west and setting in the east rather than the alternative. So if that's the case, I guess it could create, some different shadows in a day cycle. So maybe all time is moving back, and maybe Ganondorf can control time.
Maybe.
And maybe he's trying to reverse time.
Yeah, Link has the ability to reverse time, at least a little bit. That's definitely a factor in something.
So I thought that was a really interesting point. But so, I mean, whether or not this is where this is taking place, here's my question is, how are they going to make this fresh?
That's the big question.
Yeah, we have the big sky islands to explore, at least some of the game. We really have no idea how much of the game is that. We do know that we have access, at least we think we have access to all of the Hyrule that we know already. And my thinking is like, if this is like truly free, open air, open world game, I could ignore the story and I could just run around, and how would it feel different than me just popping in Breath of the Wild and running around?
Yeah, totally.
So that's where I have a concern. But maybe if in the present or whatever this time period is, maybe it starts to slowly transform to the ancient past of where everything's floating. And I pointed it out to you the other night when we were talking, like, how cool would it be if you're just running along in Hyrule, and then you look kind of like in the first game where you would look off and you'd see a dragon just flying or a shooting star land, like real time world events that happen whether you're there or not.
Yeah.
Like, what if a big chunk of land just at random starts to float up in the sky?
That would be the coolest thing ever.
And like, what if like you happen to be on it and it just starts lifting in the sky? Like, that would be amazing to me. So like maybe that could explain how the geography of the map we know is ever changing throughout the game. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I'm sticking with my 10,000 years ago theory. So I think the reason it'll be interesting to explore Hyrule again is because it's not even the same Hyrule, but like new civilizations, new people to talk to, new structures, new like everything. Well, it's actually old, not new, but you know, to make the world feel fresh. That's what they'll do.
And obviously from a gameplay, they got to keep the player happy. And so like, I mean, again, we're talking about a time period of who knows when, but like some gameplay things, obviously to swap in for the shrines, we're hoping dungeons. And maybe in the sky realm, maybe there is a substitute for shrines there. You know, we don't know. And maybe there's more like smaller challenges you can do as well as the dungeons, because I think that it'd be cool to have both. But hopefully with a more visual aesthetic.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, evidence for dungeons, we have a couple shots. This shot, which we don't know it's a dungeon, but it does look to be underground, with a new enemy. And there's a platform behind the enemy that looks like similar to some of the platforms with the staircases from the sky, but maybe a chest is there. We don't know. But so I hope dungeons make a return. I think they will.
And I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think one of the biggest indicators that dungeons are coming back is that giant, huge structure in the sky on one of the islands, because I can't really think of what else it would be except a dungeon.
Well, and it could be another thought is you know how on the surface you'd have, you know, just expanse where you could explore, and then you randomly run into a stable or a village or a town or whatever, or one of the major provinces. Maybe in the sky you have, you know, these arches or whatever, right? But then maybe you have maybe there is an island that has this big structure where a certain theorized tribe lives.
Yes.
And we talked about them a little bit. We haven't really talked about them at length, but the Zonai. And honestly, every time the Zonai was mentioned in the past, I'd roll my eyes.
Pretty much me too, yeah.
But I kind of take it seriously now.
Me too.
One, it was like a little tease in Breath of the Wild, and I should have talked about this earlier with clues from the first game, because like you have the Zonai ruins in the Farron region. It appears like they worship dragons. Then you have like there's other areas too, like mazes and the, you know, other areas that look like Zonai ruins. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say the Forgotten Temple is like that either. But anyway, another reason is we're looking right at it is this tool this flamethrower that Link is using, and it's attached to his shield.
Yeah, it's a dragon head attached to the front of his shield, and it looks almost identical to a lot of the Zonai ruins in Breath of the Wild.
Yes. And it's powered by I can't find a good frame. It's powered by the same energy.
The green energy.
Yeah. So what the heck? And basically, I mean, it could be that, like maybe we'll see, and I'll pull up your this comment here. Do you think the dragons originated from the Sky Islands? I think so.
I think so too, yeah.
We see them kind of emerge from dragon portals in Breath of the Wild and leave and go back. Obviously, in Skyward Sword, we saw dragons, and I feel like maybe they weren't in the sky, though. They were on the surface. Anyway, but I do think, maybe we'll see the dragons come back, and maybe they'll be smaller. Maybe they're not as mature yet. I don't know. It was 10,000 years ago. But I think we'll see the Zonai. And I think that, like the Sheikah, they'll have access to magic. And maybe in the past, they're responsible for the way that Ganondorf was sealed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So here, I can start talking about more big picture. This is kind of story stuff. But
okay.
So I have this kind of theory where it's like, you have the Sheikah, and they have blue energy, and that's wisdom. So Sheikah, blue energy, wisdom. And then you have the Yiga clan, however you want to pronounce it. And they have malice, which is like red, evil energy, malice. They work for Ganondorf. And so I think this new tribe is going to be Zonai.
So the power, right?
The power. So wisdom, power, Sheikah, wisdom, Yiga clan, power. And then Zonai is going to be courage. And they have green energy for the hero.
So
that's
great.
the three tribes of the Triforce type of thing.
I love it. I think that's a good guess for sure. I would just love to see, and I feel like opening up this mysterious tribe. It's not the first time Zelda's ever done that, but it would be like really great to that's their ticket to for us to learn more. But yeah, no. Trying to think of anything else on that. Anything? Oh, a couple of people have brought up the seas, underwater exploration. That makes a lot of sense of how to make the game more enjoyable and expand on the map.
Yeah. I think it'll be similar to, this is a weird comparison, but Mario Kart 7, where they had land, air, and sea. So I'm thinking it'll be underground, you explore under the water, and then you explore in the sky. Those are kind of the three new areas of Hyrule that you get to explore. So you could explore in the sky above Hyrule, you could explore underground in the caves, and you can also go out into the ocean and explore under the water.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that if they do that, if more and more structures of the surface break off, go into the sky, that opens up an underground area or a dungeon. I think that will be enough to help make the whole map feel fresh to me.
Definitely.
And of course, from a story standpoint, imagine what it would be like. I mean, whatever is going to be happening. If you go, let's say it's in the present, like I keep suggesting as well. If you go to Zora's domain and you see Sidon and the king or whatever, maybe the king's dead and Sidon's the king. I don't know.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
What would make visiting those locations fresh as well?
Yeah.
So there's so much to chew off, but I'll also you think of the Bridge of Hylia. If you could go underwater there,
ooh, that'd be cool.
That place all of a sudden becomes really cool.
Definitely. And Breath of the Wild's Lake Hylia is easily the least interesting in all of the 3D games, because in almost all of them you get
it shouldn't be, because the bridge is amazing. You know, it's a huge bridge.
You get the metal boots and you can explore underneath Lake Hylia, and it's really cool. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I'd like to see another water temple.
I knew it was coming. I refused to say it, but you're right. I mean, perfect place for a dungeon. And that was kind of my thing. If you could simply go underwater, that's a dungeon in plain sight that we couldn't access in Breath of the Wild. But yeah. I can't really think of anything else about the map that I want to talk about, but
I think that's it. Oh, there's one more thing I was thinking about. We kind of already touched on it, but it's that shot of the green puddle that rewinds time.
Oh,
or whatever.
Yes.
There it is. Right there. There's a part of me that's scared that that's a transition from the ground to the sky, and that the ground and the sky will be separate areas, and if you want to go between them, you'll have to go through that cutscene. And I kind of hope that isn't the case because I want it to stay an open air, open world. But I think it's possible that the sky and the ground are two separate, like distinct areas.
Yeah. I'm going to be hopeful and say that I think that there's a lot of problems with that, because if you're in the sky on the islands and you want to get down, I mean, simply jumping would defeat this theory, because then you could just, paraglide down.
Well, the thing I'm scared of is that it would be like if you're on the divine, well, like on the divine beast, which one is it? The one that Rivali had.
Va
Meadow, yeah. Like on Va Meadow, you can see the ground below you, but if you try jumping off of it, Link just like screams and then it reloads you. So there's a part of me that's scared that the only way to go between the two is to go through those puddle things. So if you want to get down, you'll have to go to just like a separate area and see a cutscene that takes you down. And if you want to go up, you'll have I really hope this isn't the case.
Yeah,
but that's just what I'm kind of thinking.
I think that I'll kind of rewind it a little bit. I think that this is a deceiving editing right here, where they do this.
Yeah, that's true, because we don't know those two shots are connected.
I don't think I don't think that's a thing. I think that that's meant to trick us, because what I think, because if my theory is correct, that is how you go back in time to the ancient past. And like you go to these certain areas across the map, kind of like in the first game, how you would have to find a specific location to trigger a memory. I feel like there are specific locations that are like your fast travel to the past.
Kind of like a Link to the Past, right? The portals.
Yeah,
that you can
yeah.
in the Dark World.
And like, yes, exactly. And like your arm would like jumpstart that thing, and you'd like basically turn into, because it's like you think of like when you beat a divine beast, and how Link just kind of turns into, I don't know if it's a water droplet. It's like a spark of light, and he flies out. Yeah, it's kind of like that. I kind of think, but I could be wrong, because I'm hopeful that it is like, and I'm not sure how you get up on the islands. I don't think Rivali's Gale is going to do it. I mean, what we're not seeing in this shot is that there could be some ground underneath this, and maybe he just jumped from one, maybe, I don't know.
Well, it's hard to tell if this is a new ability or like a transition that will lead into gameplay.
Yeah. Hello, Animal Lover. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Druber Plays discussion. So yeah, I don't know about that traversal. I think they purposely didn't show us this just to make us speculate. But to Mind Guy's point, that if these islands, are at the same height as, or at least the lowest one is at the same height as, maybe the Gerudo Valley, maybe it's not that hard to get up there. I don't know. Yeah.
Another thing that might be kind of scary is if you misstep and accidentally fall off, it would take a long time to get back up.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because imagine you're just walking around and you check your phone and you're kind of not watching where you're going and you accidentally fall off, and then it's another 30 minutes of gameplay to get back up.
Can you imagine?
I mean, I guess the original Breath of the Wild was like that. Like if you're on top of a tall mountain and you jump off, that's on you,
Right, yeah. I don't know. I think we should move on to one more thing. And this is actually a fun thing, because you think about like when we broke down, like back when Breath of the Wild trailers would come out and you'd like theorize over those things, what a lot of where like a lot of the fun came from that game was a lot of the charm, the Zelda charm that was injected into it. Like the stuff that we obsess over that wasn't in the teasers and trailers. And I'm wondering, like, in terms of like gameplay, world building, that kind of thing, is like, what if you got to work with the Bolson Construction Company again and rebuild Hyrule? Like not just a town, but like rebuild things that were torn apart by the calamity 100 years ago. And like in a way that could be like the biggest giant side quest in the game. And like you could rebuild Lon Ranch and rebuild,
Ooh.
you know, like different areas that like were in shambles in the first game. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. That would be really cool. I just hope it's more than grab me 150 bundles of wood.
Well, this actually leads us to our next topic in a good way is what will the player's experience be like in this sequel? In other words, let's talk about the gameplay. And we kind of already have been, but I think that like going off that point, like, yeah, in terms of like rebuilding stuff, it would have to be a little bit more interesting than bringing bundles of wood and finding someone whose name ends in SON. I think that like, and also we could talk about crafting and weapon durability and things like that.
Yeah,
like what
stuff.
Gameplay mechanics do you think we'll see like improved or expounded on?
We talked about this a little bit yesterday. I think the Zelda team really took a step back and kind of looked at the Zelda franchise as a whole, and they came up with the survival elements and the open world. And I seriously doubt they're willing to throw it out the window this fast. So I'm guessing all those kind of staple elements of Breath of the Wild will return. But I think they'll also be improved upon, like weapon durability. Maybe they'll add a repair system where you can bring some tools and stuff. Like Age of Calamity kind of had something like that. Like you go to a workshop and you give them materials and you can upgrade your tools so they last longer, they do more damage. Like I think the core mechanics of Breath of the Wild will return in this game, but will be even better.
Yeah, like I think when it comes to the cooking and stuff, like, you know, that was fun and everything, but the materials you get for cooking, you know, sometimes you're crafting potions or things that will help with, you know, longer stamina. It'd be really great if like you could do a full crafting system where you have a weapon that you could add some elemental like additions to make it more durable or whatever. Like, or if there's a way in your inventory where you could tell when, like, how, like, what the durability of your weapon was and how close it was to breaking. Because I'm the Zelda player who really kind of actually liked the durability system, although I thought they broke too quickly. And I shared this with you, like maybe the ability that Link has in his arm maybe can repair weapons in a way. Yeah. Which would be awesome. Or keep it from breaking longer. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And even if Link, this is just kind of a weird thought, but if Link can rewind time, maybe he can just rewind his weapons breaking.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That'd be so great. Yeah. If he could rewind a big spiky ball in time. Who's to
just
say
rewind your sword from breaking.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. In terms of like gameplay, like some of my favorite stuff from Breath of the Wild was taming horses and stuff.
Oh yeah, stuff like that.
I'm not heading toward talking about loft wings. That's not where I was going with that. But it'd be really cool if that system came back and I could see it improved upon. Like if maybe there's more rare creatures to find, especially if you're in the past. Like what if there was like a Pegasus, a horse that could fly, and maybe that's how you get up to the islands.
That would be cool. I definitely think they need to add a feature where you can register different animals, because like you find a bear or an elk in Breath of the Wild, and you're like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. But the second you get off of it, it's gone forever. So if you can have multiple different types of mounts that you can like register at the stable and call them and they come running to you, that would be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of like, you know, clothing and armor and stuff, we saw a little bit of like detail in that, like in the first game where it would show the strength and you could upgrade it by visiting a great fairy or whatnot. But it'd be really cool. But it'd be really great if you could just upgrade it on your own, you know, at any time, by crafting better armor and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. That's the weird thing about Breath of the Wild, is that it has all of the elements of a normal crafting system. You have resource collecting, storage, you have all these things in your inventory, and you can't really use most of them. They're just kind of there in your inventory. You can sell them for rupees, but other than that, there's not much to do with them. So I think adding in a full crafting system would make collecting more fun and just add a lot more replayability to the game.
It says, I love taming the Lord of the Mountain. Maybe we could keep it this time. Yeah, that'd be cool. Like just more rare animals, I think. Do you think we'll be able to tame birds or even a Lionel? Kind of like it reminds me of Twilight Princess when you could call birds and like they'd land on your arm and you could like send them places. That was kind of fun. A Lionel, I don't really see that happening. Since it is more of an enemy. I mean, that would be cool to ride a Lionel around, but I don't think so. Also, a little side note, we saw in the teaser how the enemies have, the bokoblins have horns and stuff all of a sudden. I'm just going to go ahead and say like that's not a huge thing for me. I think that it's just a way that they're upgrading the enemies, but story-wise, maybe Ganondorf coming back has strengthened all the enemies in the map.
Or sticking with my theory
that it's all in the past.
they're the ancestors of bokoblins, and they're from 10,000 years ago.
Yeah, and in other words, we should stop calling this the sequel to Breath of the Wild and the prequel in many ways. If Lionels were neutral creatures, then yes, maybe you could tame one. Yeah, that's interesting. Other gameplay mechanics. I mean, at its heart, it was all about freedom, and that's how they broke the Zelda conventions. Now we're talking about them bringing some of those conventions back, like dungeons, and such like that. I also think, I don't know, it's a tough balance of how you balance the story with the gameplay, but I feel like there is now I'll say I'm a huge fan of the Breath of the Wild story. I know a lot of people aren't. I like how they handled it, because I feel like the present day story is your story that you choose. But I feel like they kind of need to be a little more linear. No?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think it worked. That Breath of the Wild story works for that game. But if you just did the same thing again, it would get old really fast. And so I think this time around they need to add more structure and like rely less on the past of 100 years ago. And like, if we are going to the past of 10,000 years ago, I want it to be experiencing it like right now, right in front of my eyes. Everything's happening to the player rather than just kind of thinking back on old times.
Oh, I just thought when you're running around 10,000 years ago, and you can make it, let's say that you're not just in the sky, you're on the surface as well, which would be trippy if you're jumping back between times. Whoa, like. Same map, but major differences. But yeah, we probably would see. I mean, someone had a question earlier about, do you think Hyrule Castle is still there? Well, according to the tapestry, it's there.
Yeah.
And I can actually pull it up. This is not the right scene.
If you can't tell already, I'm a big believer in the 10,000 years ago theory. So I think all the open world stuff, I think there's the opening section with Ganondorf and the corpse, but I think Link gets sent back in time and everything from that point onwards takes place 10,000 years ago.
Yeah. Actually, while I'm on this scene, this brings up a good point. Right here is what I was talking about. Now this is 100 years ago. But I'm talking about what led to this moment 10,000 years ago. Is that when you're buried? Yeah. How did they get buried? Like the divine beasts, we might see the creation of the divine beasts.
True. Yeah.
If they're truly fighting the calamity, if the tapestry is really true, and then if that's the case, you would see 4 completely new champions in the past, right?
Yeah.
And a Zelda that we haven't even talked about that. If there's a Link from 10,000 years ago, there's a Zelda from 10,000 years ago. Or a Hylia, or maybe she's Hylia or something,
yeah.
But how did they get buried? And I think that maybe something happened to the Sky Islands and they fell. Everything just collapsed and they buried the divine beast. That's how I think it happened.
That would be cool. Yeah.
And this scene that we're seeing the Sheikah tribe digging them up 100 years ago or so, that would make sense. But no, I'm trying to find the tapestry. Here it is. So this scene, you see, I'll kind of have it playing while we're talking, but anyways, we have in the tapestry, you have Calamity Ganon, you have Zelda, you have Link, you have the Divine Beast, 4 champions, you have Guardians, and you have Hyrule Castle at the top. And the border is kind of showing you the different inhabitants of Hyrule, including a lot of Sheikah.
One really interesting thing that I saw today is that Link, the hero of 10,000 years ago, actually has a yellow arm, which could be the gold surrounding his green arm.
Okay, yeah. Well, there is
you
can see it. No, in the this is a huge file, so I'm scrubbing it. Is kind of difficult. But there's a shot where we assume it's stasis, right? Where he's moving something because it kind of reminds us of that. But it also it also could be the Triforce.
Yeah, because it's like a golden power on the back of his hand.
Yeah, on the back of his hand.
Yeah.
But there are definite, like, this is obviously what we're looking at. Obviously, it's a really interesting, unique art style of the tapestry, but that's clearly the hero from our latest teaser. No?
Definitely. Like, it's the long hair. You can see a green piece of clothing that's waving behind him. He has the one arm that has gold on it, and he's holding the sword. Like, it looks pretty much like the Link we saw in the teaser.
He's got bare legs, too, which we see in the teaser. He's got the Master Sword, though, and we have no clue if I mean, I'm assuming that's what the legend says, that he had the sword that seals the darkness. Now, here's where we get into some story implications. But like, how much of this tapestry is true?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because 10,000 years ago is a really long time.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not discounting the fact that we're not going to have Divine Beasts and Guardians in here, but like, maybe we won't. And like, if the hand on Ganondorf's chest is any indication, maybe what is suggested in this tapestry is not how they sealed the Calamity the first time.
Definitely, I think that's a super big possibility.
Just the fact that like, I mean, it seems too picture perfect that everything that took place 10,000 years ago is the way that it should play out or does play out eventually in Breath of the Wild.
Maybe this is getting super speculation.
Okay.
But maybe this tapestry, Ganondorf is kind of behind the creation of it because he wants to take over the Guardians. So he wants them to unearth the Guardians because then he can take control of them. So maybe he's warping the story so he can more easily defeat them.
I hadn't thought of that.
That's pretty high speculation, but yeah.
Here's where it shows all inhabitants or whatever. There's a king. There's a king of Hyrule there on the right. We're assuming it's a king. But anyway, I'm of the opinion that there was no calamity, actually, that it was just Ganondorf. And
I hope so too, because Calamity Ganon's a little bit boring.
Yeah, but that it was when he was sealed that all the hatred kind of manifested itself into the Calamity and started pouring out of him. Like the seal was strong for a long time, but eventually weakened.
Yeah.
And I guess we're kind of getting into it, so I'll just kind of pull it up now. But like, let's get into it. We've already kind of story time.
Yeah.
We've already kind of talked about some initial ideas that we had on story implications, but this is like, we obviously know that we're probably wrong.
Yeah, totally.
All of our ideas here are just for fun. But yeah, we're most likely wrong on all this stuff. So while we're already of that mindset, we might as well just like, quote unquote, predict what we think the story is going to be.
So I think I keep a couple of things in mind. One of them is that they said that this will be the darkest game in the Zelda storyline. So I said this yesterday, but I think we'll get a shot of the Master Sword broken in half. And I think the opening to the game will be this really hard gut punch to our heroes, and they'll be beaten down really hard, and then the rest of the game will kind of be trying to recover from that and beat the odds against Ganondorf.
Yeah. Here's a question, because I don't think I'm prepared to just like have my turn and tell you exactly what's going to happen. We can kind of like talk about this together. How do you think the game will begin? Do you
That's
think it
interesting.
will begin in the cave?
I think it will open just above, like in Hyrule Castle, just before they go down. Because I think they'll have to explain at least a little bit. How did Zelda know to look below Hyrule Castle? How is she figuring all of this out? So I think we'll get a short amount of time where Zelda finds some book or something that's like there's a deep Sheikah secret hidden deep below Hyrule Castle. And she'll be like, Link, let's go check this out. And then we'll go into the caves. And that's where we'll pick up where the teaser starts off.
So basically, as the player, we might not have a chance to really do much before we go down there.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah. I wishful thinking here, but I hope that you actually, like, I hope that there's been a significant, not significant, some good time that has
a couple
passed
years, yeah,
from the first game to the second game. And like maybe in that time, we're at least starting to see Hyrule Castle be repaired before it gets taken over again, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it would be cool to like, and this is just my fan fiction way of it starting. So you guys will have to forgive, but like, imagine it begins with a glowing light and open your eyes again. And Link, instead of waking up in the Shrine of Resurrection, wakes up in a bed in Hyrule Castle. Like he's living there. And like, open your eyes, like Zelda's actually like waking him up, as we have seen, you know, him being woken up, because Zelda loves to have Link be asleep.
Yeah.
They do. And maybe you get a chance to like, things are good. Maybe like Zelda is like walking along and she's telling like Link, like kind of like she is at the end of the game, like today we're going to kind of like go do this. We're going to go do this. We're going to go do this. And then like you get a chance to like maybe explore just Hyrule Castle, kind of like the Great Plateau a little bit, until maybe you spot some malice. And it's like, what?
Or just some little clue that not everything is okay. Some
clue. Because in that teaser, you see Malice they intercut their journey in the caves with Malice spreading and like killing a rat or whatever, you know? So like maybe they spot Malice, and maybe that's Ganondorf on purpose luring them to that area.
Because maybe he knows that he can only come back if all the pieces of the Triforce come back together.
And that's what I think. Yeah, like so I think there will be hopefully a little bit of time, kind of like a Great Plateau kind of thing, where you get like to kind of get used to the game, and then stuff goes down. But it might just begin with stuff going down. Who knows?
Well, if this is kind of weird, but if they start going back towards a more normal Zelda structure, then maybe we'll have a couple dungeons in the normal universe, and there's usually like a big event that changes everything. And then
usually
from
after
that
three
point,
dungeons.
Yeah, usually after 3 dungeons. And then from that point on, then you start the rest of the real meat of the game. So maybe the teaser trailer that we've been seeing is kind of in that first opening part of the game rather than the very beginning.
That'd be really cool. Yeah. But I think, so I mean, getting to the good stuff, I think also like, Ganon is he knows that those 3 need to be in the same room, right? Like they need to he needs to bring the Triforce together. Now we have no indication that Link has the Triforce. We didn't see that in Breath of the Wild. We only saw it, and it looked like, honestly, maybe it's just about Zelda, because it appeared to me that Zelda just was wielding the whole Triforce.
Yeah, that was weird. She just had the whole thing.
She had the whole thing. So maybe Ganon just needs her.
Maybe,
So when they go down, you know, and this is interesting. Here's where, to go off your point that I think the game's super dark. What if there's a really good reason that they're showing us a disjointed scene there of all these shots that kind of like we're trying to piece it together. So they come down, they see the cave paintings, they see the green swirling energy, the hand on the corpse, and the earth starts to kind of shake and stuff, and it wakes up, and then the ground gives underneath, and Link grabs Zelda before she falls until some malice attacks Link, and maybe that shot of him where he's grabbing his arm isn't really in the game, right? Maybe what happens is that the malice kind of possesses Link, and he willingly lets go of Zelda.
That would be cool.
And she's like, because she kind of looks betrayed, in that
She
shot.
looks, yeah, like surprised.
Just
or
a
she doesn't know what's
surprise.
going on. Yeah.
I don't know, and maybe that's when like the hand has no choice but to let go, and it grabs onto Link to save him, but also it kind of puts him in a deep slumber, if you will, and we go to the past.
Yeah. Going off of weird, crazy ideas. I said this yesterday. This is pretty crazy, and it's definitely not going to happen. But I had this idea of in the opening scene, Ganondorf successfully kills Zelda, and
Oh my
she
gosh.
died. Like she died, and then from there, Link has to go back to the past to stop that from ever happening.
Wow.
That would be pretty crazy, and I think that would successfully make it darker than Majora's Mask.
Yeah. The thing about it being darker than Majora's Mask is that you have to go like Majora's Mask is really dark, and it's about like even the happy characters are somehow not right in the head. You know, like it seems like you're surrounded by it seems like you're in a madhouse sometimes, like because of all the characters that are around.
Definitely.
Or the scenes that you see. I'm thinking of that statue, where you have to bring your own statue with you in that dungeon. You know what I'm talking about? Make a statue of yourself. Yeah. That thing is
freaky stuff.
So, yeah. Here's the thought about the hand, that it doesn't make a lot of sense that, because we're told at least that Zelda seals the calamity right in the past, but what if the hand is the hero, is the hero from the ancient past, is Link? It's past version of Link, and it lets go of Ganondorf in order to save present day Link. And maybe there's more than, we're just not seeing the whole figure. Maybe there actually is more than a hand. Maybe there's a whole person there. Yeah. And that is living inside Link, and that's how he's able to go back into the days of the past, because the spirit of the ancestors there. I don't know. It's a thought.
Definitely.
Because I think you and I talked about before, like maybe that will be the companion, like of the game. We're used to having a companion to Link in the game, and we didn't have one in Breath of the Wild. So it'd be kind of cool to have a character that follows us around and talks to us.
Yeah, I wonder if the Green Hand will talk, or if it's just a force of nature, or like I would kind of like it if the Green Hand was kind of not a part of Link, but someone else being inside of Link. Sort of like we said, Midna coming out and talking to Link. Like the Green Hand will come out and give him advice, sort of thing.
Yeah, that'd be nuts.
Gives a whole new meaning to the phrase "talk to the hand."
But like, so my thought is like, yeah, that in the first act of the game, all this stuff goes down, and that you are sent to the ancient past, and you would spend a good chunk of time there. And I can't help but like think about this game other than drawing parallels to like an Assassin's Creed title, because you spend most of your time in the past, but then you have significant moments that happen in the present as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And I wonder if that will be kind of the formula almost, for this game. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
because
I'm sticking with my idea of Zelda in the present, Link in the past, and you'll switch between those two.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, it'd be here's a question. How do you explain, I guess, the different, well, I guess you said earlier the different looks of Link are meant to throw us, right? Like you won't actually be okay. Yeah, I mean, it's totally feasible. I think that like going into the ancient past, I mean, it's so hard to guess from like, I think we only got like 4 shots of it. Yeah. But I think it'd be safe to say that, we're going to get to see a lot of new things. That one mechanical creature was a new thing. We might see the Zonai. We might see more dragons. But I think I think I'm with you. Like, we're going to meet Ganondorf in the past.
I really hope so.
And I think like that has to be like the zombified Ganondorf who broke free of his seal. Like, what's his goal, right? Like, do you think Hyrule Castle is lifting up in the present time?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, because it'd be almost interesting if like by the time like Link maybe finally does everything he needs to do in the past and comes back to the present to do whatever crazy stuff he's gonna do, that when the Hyrule he comes back to looks kind of similar to the past, because by that point there's floating islands again. Like more landmarks have lifted off, just like Hyrule Castle.
Like Ganondorf is trying to make it like it used to be.
Yeah. Like, because I'm trying to think of what his goal is, and maybe it's to reverse time and go to the past so he can fix something.
Definitely.
I don't know,
because it's a little too late for him, because he's pretty dead. You know, like I doubt he wants to rule over Hyrule as a zombie. So his goal is probably to get back to the way he used to be and then take over Hyrule from there.
Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts? I feel like I've said most of everything I wanted to say.
That's about most of my story stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is I want Ganondorf to talk, because he kind of moans in this trailer, just goes, and like I want him to talk and articulate his thoughts and threaten Link and all that stuff.
It could be also like, because as excited as I was about the trailer and everything, or the teaser and seeing it, I feel that like just pulling back the lens of Zelda and looking at the real world, that this game isn't very far in development.
Yeah.
And maybe they just like, maybe that's not how Ganondorf is going to sound, because that just sounded like the Calamity Ganon sound roar. True. And maybe they just don't have the voice actor yet. You know, it could be that.
That makes sense.
Because, you know, when Eiji Onuma was like, we're aiming for a 2022 release, that makes me think of the Breath of the Wild marketing
2015,
campaign.
2016, 2017 just kept getting pushed back. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I mean, like, I don't want to trash on it, because I want this game to take as long as it's going to take to make it right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really wonder how, like, I'm glad we got to see it, but it also kind of felt like it was a thrown together kind of thing to me. Maybe that's just too harsh.
Little bits and pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but I think like it's an exciting time, because we know that we know a little bit more of the picture. We have a little bit more of the puzzle pieces to kind of guess at what this game is going to be. I'm just excited, because here today, you know, I'm still playing Breath of the Wild, and enjoying that game, and like just dreaming about what it could be. It's exciting to think about the future.
Well, that's why Zelda games are so important to so many people, is they have a really long lasting legacy. Like they stay around, they stick around, and they mean a lot to you.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we kind of wrap things up?
Basically, just I'm really excited to see what they do with this game. I think this new teaser gave us a better look of the vibe and the feel, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's a lot of new, fresh ideas and mechanics. And I trust the Zelda team. They haven't made a bad 3D Zelda game yet, and I'm sure they already have the great foundation of Breath of the Wild. And if they're just taking that and making it even better, I think we'll have another masterpiece on our hands.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, because beyond Majora's Mask being a sequel to Ocarina of Time, this is, I feel like, more of a sequel, like more of a direct telling of, or a continuation of the story than we've never gotten that before.
Yeah, because in Majora's Mask, you kind of revert to Child Link, and he just leaves Hyrule altogether.
Yeah, totally new everything. And this isn't that. This is more of a continuation, which is exciting for me, because I was just like, well, I'm happy with Breath of the Wild. I'm glad we got that. We'll see something completely different the next time. And we're getting more of it, which makes me think that, like, obviously from a developer standpoint, like they loved, or they see the reception that they got and how popular it is. And like, they got a huge win out of this. Like, let's continue that. but like for me as a, in being in the story, it's like, well, keep it going, become one of the, like, I almost want them to become a franchise that just keeps telling the same story in all future installments. Maybe that's a little much, I don't know. But like, it's a kind of exciting that, like, and say what you will about Age of Calamity, everybody, but like, it's kind of cool that like at the end of the day, we'll have essentially 3 games, a trilogy, maybe
with the
like
same characters,
with the same characters. Like that's kind of awesome for Zelda.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But anyways, very, very excited for the game. This will probably not be the last time we talk about it until the release, but I hope that like for you guys watching this, that this was a cool format. I've never really done this before, but the Druber Plays discussion, I think, will be making a return in the future. I'm excited about it. And this format, this series, we could talk about anything.
That's the cool thing. Yeah, it's pretty open air, almost like Breath of the Wild itself.
Yeah. So I might come on here to talk about, other games, movies, books I've read, I don't know, shows I've directed. But I like the format of having a guest on with me to talk. So like Nintendo Hero, I hope you can come back.
Totally. Yeah. This is fun stuff. It's fun to talk with someone, and it keeps the stream lively and engaging.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, this is, you have to forgive me, folks, that I've never done this before, so I'm not sure how to end it now, but this was a lot of fun. This will be on the channel for you guys to revisit as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll be couple of housekeeping things for me, just real quick. I do plan on bringing gameplay streams back very, very soon. I have a Will of the Wisps to play. I have a Kingdom Hearts to play. But on the topic of Zelda, as we go into the rest of 2021 here and into 2022, I'd really like to, one, play Age of Calamity on the channel, and also replay Breath of the Wild, because that was a fun time. And I think that it's warranted since we're all so excited about the sequel. So at some point, all that is coming your way. But I would definitely think that these Druber Play discussions are so much fun. I had so much fun with this today that I think it will be coming back very soon. So
yeah, this was good.
All right. Well, I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. And I will catch you in the next one. Nintendo Hero, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is Druber Plays signing off.